How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Shot Clock Podcast. My name is Nathan Shaw. As always, I'm joining you today, hosting the show today. I'm joined by Jonathan Ryan Scott. John, how are you doing, man?
Good, Nathan. How are you?
I'm doing great. John's a producer for NBA TV. He's worked with the Atlanta Hawks, works with multiple NBA players. He does a lot of filming, does a lot of work. He's just all around amazing at what he does. So go ahead and talk a little bit about what you do.
I'm a producer for TNT for Turner Sports. Now with Warner Media, and basically I've been a producer for 10 years. My job is to make sure that the content on NBA TV, TNT, Bleacher Report, that our concept is up to par, that it's on the network, and making sure that everything is taken care of from the beginning of a production all the way to the end of the production. So that's pretty much what my job is.
Now you're saying you work for TNT, which I apologize for getting that wrong. But no, it's TNT is one of my things I tune into every Tuesday night, every Thursday night, whatever there's a game on, the Lakers game especially. I'm always tuned in. So it's cool knowing that you work behind the scenes of that. What's the pressure on you to perform well in that position?
I mean, it's a lot of pressure. It's live TV, but at the end of the day, I mean, I grew up watching Inside the NBA. That was like my favorite show on TV because I'm a big basketball fan. So watching Charles Barkley, Kenny, and EJ, and now we have Shaq now, but at the time we didn't. So I've always been a big fan of the show. So to be able to work on the show is a dream come true. So yes, it's pressure because it's live TV, but at the end of the day, it's not like we're doing surgery. We're not saving lives. So, we really want everything to work smoothly, but if it doesn't, it's not like it's life or death. So we just have a good time with what we're doing.
Now, do you work do you work up in front with inside the NBA or do you not?
Yes. Yeah, I'm a producer on the show.
Okay, so that's cool for me because I love watching that show. Every time halftime comes on, usually people want to tune it out or go get food, and I'm always like, no, I gotta stay and watch Shaq, Kenny,
Yeah.
Ernie, and Chuck. So I always love that piece. So what's it like working with those guys?
Man, I mean, now with COVID, it's definitely different. Everything is so distant now, so it's different. But back in the day, it was a lot of fun. Those guys always keep us laughing. Actually, but behind the scenes is a lot more fun than the actual show because these guys, like in between the breaks, they're just cracking jokes. That's why they're always laughing coming back to air because they're always saying something funny to make each other laugh. Chuck and Shaq, that's a genuine relationship. When they're mad at each other, they're really mad, and when they're going at and having fun, they're having a blast. So I know their moms are friends behind the scenes as well. I love that show, man. It's a great show to work on. We have a lot of fun.
Yeah, and one more thing with that is, oh wow, the question just blew past my head. Anyways, but no, you spent over 100 days in the bubble, which was one of the which was one of the most famous. Oh, back to the question I was going to ask. Yes,
For sure.
so you were there for opening night, I believe, right?
Yes.
So how was that like? Kind of, you're back from the bubble, and now here you are on opening night in Atlanta. What's so different about it now?
Oh, well, to answer your question, I wasn't there for opening night this year. I'm sorry. I was there for opening night last year. That was really cool. Opening night, we had Chadwick Boseman on the set. Rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman. That was really good to have that happen on. It happened in LA, I believe, and we announced Dwayne Wade coming on to the show. Me being from Miami, I'm a big Miami Heat fan, so to have Dwayne Wade actually working on inside with the guys and also on the arena as well, I think that was really cool to have that dynamic. But yeah, opening night this year, it was definitely different. Everything is different now. The set is completely spaced out. You have to have special permission to come on to, the studio set now. It's a very limited crew. So it's very different. I'm really looking forward to when it gets back to normal.
Yeah, and one of the things I've noticed the most was they did a pan out shot with the crane, and whenever you saw the crane going up, you could see the glass in between each
Correct.
analyst.
Yeah.
So it's just a crazy world we live in now because you would have never thought last season opening night, here we are, glass in between each analyst and how spread out they are. But which leads
Yeah.
us into the bubble kind of because the bubble, although they weren't there in the bubble themselves, but you were there in the bubble. And one of the most famous pictures that went around during the bubble was the Wilt Chamberlain day you had of your 100 days. So go ahead and talk about that a little bit. Rebecca Harlow had you on, shouted you out live on air. So that had to be cool for you.
Oh man, it was a great experience. It was really good to be there for 100+ days. When I first got there, I was part of 4 media members that were allowed to get early access. We left at like the end of June, and we entered into the bubble. And it was myself, Chris Haynes, NBA insider for Yahoo Sports, also works with TNT as a sideline reporter, Malika Andrews from ESPN, and her producer, Melinda Adams. And yeah, it was fun just being part of 4 people to just kind of survey the land and be guinea pigs for the NBA to kind of see how far we can go and test the limits of how much access the media could actually have. So it was a lot of fun. It was a strict quarantine when we first got there. It was 7 days, complete lockdown. They brought the food to us. The only time we could leave the room was to test. We take daily COVID tests. We had to do self-assessment tests. That's when I took my temperature. Also had to do a pulse reading. The doctors would come to your room if there were any issues. Everything was done on an app, so they can monitor your health through an app. We had like these magic bands on our wrists that allowed us access to different checkpoints around the bubble. Anytime you had to go close to players, you had to check in. And if you were sick or had any symptoms, the band would actually let the people know that you're sick and you could not access to go to the players, and the doctor would come check you out. So yeah, it was cool, man. I felt like I was a part of a science experiment, but I mean, I was in the safest place on earth. I feel like that, the way they had it all set up, the precautions they took, all the money they spent into it, all the thought that went into every event that took place there was, it was really cool. And I was glad to be a part of it, going through that whole process.
Yeah, one of the things I loved about the bubble was it kind of reminded me of its own whole another society. It was like you're away from the disease, you're away from COVID-19, and it's just a bunch of basketball players in the big AAU camp, basically. And it was just its whole own country almost in a way, just located in Disneyland in Florida. So I thought that was pretty amazing for you guys to be a part of, kind of like a whole nother experiment.
No, for sure. We said it, man. It was definitely an AAU campus. It was an elite AAU campus. The Coronado Springs where we stayed, the Disney Coronado Springs, that resort was actually where the top team stayed. So you had the Lakers, Clippers, you had the Raptors, Celtics, Nuggets, Miami Heat. I'm blanking. I don't know if I said Celtics, but all these top teams, at least the top 8 teams, all stay at that hotel. And yeah, it was the AAU atmosphere. You're seeing guys walking around with their teammates, seeing guys walking around with just by themselves, or just with, you know, there was no paparazzi, I guess to say. There was no entourages or anything. It was just guys walking around their house shoes. The way everything was set up was they had ballrooms that are usually for big banquets or for big ceremony type events, but they turned these into practice courts. And it was just these massive practice courts with gyms in the back where guys can work out and lift weights. And they can walk straight from their room right down to the ballroom and practice. You'll see guys there sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning, just getting shots up. I'll see Kawhi, I'll see Giannis, guys putting in that work. Yes, it was a cool world to be in. You know, I lived in with the media and the refs and the NBA staff. So it's nothing to just see, you know, a popular ref playing pickleball, or they held down the pool quite often too. The referees held it down. I think they had the most fun out of everybody, to be honest with you. But it was just a cool world to be immersed in.
Yeah, and you mentioned pickleball, which I remember watching the NBA Bubble Watch Instagram. They had on the pickleball tournament. So that was one of my favorite things to watch, because it was like the refs, you could tell they were having more fun than anybody, like you said.
Oh, Scott Foster dominated. Scott Foster was the man in pickleball. Like, I've seen articles they wrote on him in his pickleball game. So yeah, he definitely held it down. He was one of the refs I remember that was really elite in pickleball.
So networking wise though, the bubble had to pay off for you, because I don't know if it's true or not, but you guys had to be able to network somewhat with other reporters, other producers there, other analysts. So what was that kind of like, being able to network with all these people from different companies?
It was amazing. It was amazing. You know, when you first go into it, you're thinking competition. You're thinking, okay, ESPN, they're the competition. So, you know, I'm doing my stuff for TNT and NBA TV, and they're doing their thing. But it's really not like that. You form relationships with people. You know, you form a bond. You're there away from your family. So it's just you guys. And it's no longer a competition. I want their stuff to look good, just like they want my stuff to look good, because we're representing the NBA, we're representing the league. So it was cool to work in such close contact with these people. Like, I'll wake up in the morning after doing my test, and I'll see, you know, Malika Andrews and her producer Melinda right downstairs in the little quad area by the fountain. They would be doing their live hits. Like, they're like some of the hardest working people I know, like morning and night. You know, ESPN's around the clock, so they're constantly doing live hits, and you'll see from the morning to the afternoon to the night, just constantly live hits, reporting on what's going on. And you know, we're doing the same for TNT as well. Making sure that the live hits and anything happening in the bubble is being transmitted back to the studio for their shows as well. But as far as networking, I mean, it was so cool to walk into the Maya Grill, which is where the media we would eat. And I'll go there for breakfast in the morning. They provide a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all free of charge. And you'll see Rachel Nichols, and they're grabbing something to eat. You'll see Woj sitting in the corner, you know, writing something. Sam Amick from The Athletic, or, you know, Chris Haynes, Mark Spears. You'll see all these guys that I just grew up watching on TV. Like, okay, these are, you know, Woj drops a Woj bomb, the whole world stops when his news breaks. And it's like, you're sitting here seeing these people and actually have an opportunity to work with them as well. So yeah, man, you form bonds, you know, bonds to this day that you can still contact these people and reach out. And it was pretty cool to be in that NBA world, especially working with the teams. You develop relationship with players, especially the NBA team staff, because in order to get to players, you have to talk to the PR, of course. So you develop relationships with the different teams. And I feel like now I can go reach out to any team and either they know me or they remember something about me from being in the bubble and working in such close contact with them. So yeah, for sure, you form relationships that will last for the rest of your life. And, you know, you're part of a unique experience. So everyone's always going to remember that bond.
Yeah, and one of the things that kind of makes me geek out inside, even though I'm not showing it, is you working with Chris Haynes. Chris Haynes is one of my favorite reporters. I fell in love with him over the bubble. I
Yeah.
loved his work, loved watching him on TNT. So were you and him close before the bubble, or did you know each other personally before?
I saw Chris Haynes a couple times at NABJ. That's a journalism conference we go to every year. So I would see him, but I just knew that was the guy who does the NBA stuff. So I never really spoke to him. It's a funny story. So when I got our first, not our first day at the bubble, when they transferred us from our hotel to the actual bubble, that's when I saw him and I was told, hey, you're going to be working with Chris Haynes. Make sure you introduce yourself or whatever. So I immediately go up to him, hey, what's up, man? I go to dap him and he's looking like, you know, like, hey man, this is quarantine. Like, what are you doing? Like, we're just no contact. And I totally forgot. And I kind of hit him on the shoulder and kind of gave me that look like, well, this guy touching me. And I was like, oh, that was a great first impression. So then later on, we just became really cool friends, man. Like we worked out a lot because there's not much to do. So we would go to the gym often and work out. He was on West Coast time. So his mind is like, he's always up. And I wake up early. So it matched a little bit where he would be up late and we would just work out, you know, we'll kick it. Just a really cool guy. Showed me the ropes, show me how this thing is done as far as a reporter. I learned a lot from him. His phone is constantly ringing. You can do a documentary on Chris Haynes. I mean, he'll be sitting there talking and all of a sudden he'll get a call from an agent. He's taking the call and he's like, hold on, I get a call from a GM and get a call from another scout and get a call from, he's just constantly working. Players are calling him. When he says he has information, it's really coming from a reliable source for real. And when I first got there, I was putting cameras everywhere because it was just us. I had no E&G crew. My guy, Dave Baker, my camera guy, ended up coming later. So it was just me and Chris Haynes, and I was sent there to tell the story in the bubble. So I started videotaping his experience and videotaping him taking his COVID test and him interacting with different people because he knows everybody. So like when I think I told you a story about how Kawhi came up and dapped me up, that was because I was sitting next to Chris Haynes. They were saying hello to him and I'm sitting next to him. So I got blessed too. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. What's up, Kawhi? That's pretty cool. LeBron and Chris Haynes have a good relationship because of his time he spent in Cleveland. So when LeBron came and saw him, they had a bunch of jokes and they're laughing and having a good time. And because of the relationships Chris Haynes has, it put me in position to get to know a lot of these players and a lot of these team personnel on a first name basis because they know him on a first name basis. So a lot of the interviews we didn't think we would be able to get. We didn't think we'd be able to get LeBron James. He hasn't talked to TNT in a while. We didn't know if we can get it. Chris Haynes organized that. He set that up. His relationship with LeBron and with his team got us that interview for TNT where we're able to have LeBron, speak on air before the playoffs. Usually he's like in, lockdown mode. But he went and talked to us. Damian Lillard, he worked with Chris Haynes when he first started out in Portland. So that was pretty cool to see that dynamic because, I'm used to working with these guys and after you work, you say peace and keep it going. But, you know, Lillard kicked it. Like, he's out there hanging out, and CJ McCollum came over, and we're just hanging out and listening to music. And it was really cool to be in that world. And I can definitely thank Chris Haynes, and I had a great experience with him. Yeah, that's my guy. He's really cool.
Yeah, and the Damian Lillard interview is one of my favorites. I love the production that went behind it. And for it being a one-man crew at the time, it's amazing the production you guys were able to put into it. So I do want to talk about that, the struggle of the behind the scenes work from you and Chris Haynes.
So when we first got there, like I said, it was just 4 of us. So I was representing the TNT side. And yeah, my camera guy didn't come for about a week or 2. So it was just myself and Chris Haynes, and we're going around, and players are coming to him, and I'm videotaping that interaction. I'm trying to tell the story of how the bubble's going. So that was a really cool to be able to just capture it kind of like a POV type style where we're experiencing this for the first time. It's not something that has happened before, so it's just all fresh and brand new. You know, I have a special skill set where I'm a producer, but I can also shoot cameras. So that allowed me to do a lot of videotaping myself as well as producing. Once my ENG crew came, we were able to do some of those bigger productions where we would get the sit down interviews and some of the major stuff. Once my camera guy came, we were able to do something better. But, you know, for the beginning of it, it was just myself and a bunch of GoPros. And I'll go around and set up as many GoPros as I can. Disney security did not like that. There was one time I got in a lot of trouble because they were thinking that I was videotaping the players' privacy, but they're not. I was just getting time lapses around the lake. But yeah, security came and shut that down. Chris Haynes came out there with me. I thought I was going to be in big trouble. He was like, "Nah, we're going to go together." So that was cool to have him have my back like that. But yeah, in the beginning, we bonded a lot because it was just us, and we're just trying to tell a story of the bubble. And we ended up making a pretty cool feature out of it. And I was really happy when my camera guy did come, because it was like we were able to kind of spread out and do more. Because I can shoot, he would go shoot some stuff, I would go shoot stuff. You know, the way the days laid out, once everything started going, you would have practice or shoot arounds and then games that night. So it's 22 teams, so we're kind of spread out. So I would say, hey man, you go to Laker practice, you get LeBron, I'll go to Clipper practice, get Kawhi, and then I'll go to Heat practice, and we'll just kind of just balance out and try to get as much B-roll as we can, because it's the people's first time seeing these players in this environment. So just trying to cover as much stuff as we can for the networks and get as many live hits and other things. It was a pretty cool adventure to do.
So I want to talk a little bit about your career itself. I mean, as a kid, whenever you started out loving this, you couldn't have imagined. I mean, I'm sure even from my point, if I ever got to that point where I was working with NBA players, working with Chris Haynes, even, I would never imagine that's where I could be.
Yeah.
It's only one thing you can hope for and wish for, but you made it happen and you're living your dream now. So kind of as a kid, how did you fall in love with this?
Well, again, I'm blessed. I'm blessed to be in this position. You know, I don't deserve it. I just feel like I'm just blessed. I've always had a love for acting, for drama, and for cameras, because that gave me a medium to actually be able to tell the story so people can see it. Before I would do plays and stage stuff, but I realized I wasn't reaching a lot of people. I was only reaching whoever was in attendance. But with the camera, I could videotape what I was doing and put it out there for a lot of people to see. Like I said before, I played basketball, church ball, school ball for a little bit, and never like on a college professional level, but you know, I was hooping. I was out there getting it in a little bit. So we would have, our team would be playing, and we would go back and watch our footage from the game, and it was terrible because the guy who was videotaping, he'll be watching with his eyes. So the fast break would go down the court, he's looking like this, and the camera's still pointing this way, and we would get the footage back, it would be bad. So the coach was like, look, we need to do something better. I was like, well, let me try it out, because I videotape around. And I started videotaping and ended up working out. Like, the stuff was good. And I started imitating what I saw in the NBA, which is interviewing people and catching incidents happening in the stands and talking about guys on the bench and kind of just giving commentary. And it just became like a match made in heaven, where I just started videotaping at my school. When I graduated, went to college, I started videotaping. It's just something that never really left me. Even when I had an elementary education degree, I would still have my camera in my hand. I was still videotaping because I was like my first love. So to be able to do that was fun. And now I look back to work for the NBA now to kind of do the same thing, just following players around, videotaping or telling stories and sit down interviews and stuff like that. I really feel like my path had been set even before I even knew it. So I enjoy this. I always have a love for movies, like I said, and I feel like one day I will do that. But the path I'm on now doing video for the NBA, looking back at all the video I did with basketball, I feel like that path has been set.
Yeah, and one thing I think it goes unnoticed a lot whenever these reporters, producers, and cameramen even get to work with the NBA. I feel like people look more at where they are now rather than what it took to get there. Like
Sure.
your story is starting out younger, you filmed, and I'm sure once you graduated college, there had to be a bit of a struggle for a while for yourself. So what was that? What was the process after college like?
After college, I went to school for elementary education, so I went into teaching. My mom had told me, make sure you get a degree in something that can pay off right away. And film was cool, but it just was such a long shot. Like I believed, but I really didn't believe. Like in the back of my head, I was like, look, let me do this to make sure I can, take care of myself and get this degree because I know I can be a teacher for sure. I knew I love kids. I knew I can do well in that field. So that's what I did, elementary education. So I taught for 3 years special needs, first and second grade, down in Miami, also in Huntsville, Alabama, Oakwood College, the school I went to. So I taught at a local school there, elementary school. And it was cool, but it never really scratched that itch. Like I really wanted to be able to produce and direct and just do stuff with cameras. And I started doing little things with my students, but it wasn't enough. So I left teaching and I went to Full Sail University. And Full Sail put the cameras in my hand. It was really good experience to be able to get your hands on gear and to talk to people who are actually working in the field to kind of guide you as to what you need to know, what you don't need to know. And the best thing I learned from that was just you got to get into it. Whatever you want to do, go into it. No matter what field you want to get into, go volunteer at that place, go give your time. It's not about the money at first. It's really just about getting in and getting people to recognize what you do and see your hard work so that they can put you right up to the top, what you're trying to do. So yeah, I had struggles at first, just trying to figure out exactly where I was trying to be. But once I got into TNT, it worked out perfectly. I started out there as just a freelancer, cutting NBA highlights. I knew how to edit, but I told them that I'd also do camera work, also produce, I write, I do all these things. But they didn't have a job for that. They had a job for this. So I took the editing, and then from there I got put on to NBA.com, where I did a lot of multimedia content, posting stuff to the site, kind of like a social producer. And then from there went to their creative services sports unit, where I would do on-air promotions, just write, produce content, mostly just promotional stuff in that department. And yeah, that's where I am today.
And which is amazing to me because that's one of the things I look at a lot whenever wanting to go in this field. Ever since I was little, second grade, I fell in love with acting because I did a talent show where I just like was doing an act, and I thought that was amazing. I fell in love with Jimmy Fallon, and I
Yeah,
guess that's where I became in love with interviewing, and I love telling people stories, hearing people's stories, having fun with it. And then it's just as time went on, and then that's where I like go on to tell people when people are like, "Man, I hated quarantine." I'm like, "I loved it." I was like, "It benefited me." I was like,
yeah,
"Without it, I wouldn't be here talking to you or getting to talk to."
for
I mean, I
sure.
play Xbox every now and then with a couple with the NBA player, and my one of my best friends I have is someone I interviewed months ago. So it's just crazy to me being where I am now and seeing that like where you are now. So it gives me hope in a way too.
No, for sure, man. We're truly blessed. I mean, we're in a pandemic. We can never forget that we're in a pandemic. Sometimes I forget, but people are dying all around us. It's very serious. What the NBA took on with the bubble, I think that's what made it so special is that they tried this experiment and it worked. Despite all the odds, despite everything happening in the country and around the world, they still were able to pull off this enormous feat. So yeah, I think this year definitely I'm choosing to look at it as the glass is half full. It's definitely a positive. I was able to be put in a situation where I thrived and I was able to, make a name for myself and do well. But I'm also very grateful. I'm very grateful that, my family's safe. You're safe. Everyone's able to still do well, and just I choose to look at it as half full because I'm alive, and my friends and family are alive, and prayers up for everyone that did not make it.
Yeah, for sure. This pandemic is a killer. And then I'm sure it had to be a killer on you for a while because before the bubble happened, there was so much insecurity whether or not you would go back straight into it or first it was the 2 week period. The NBA was going to be suspended for 2 weeks, and then it became a month, and then it was like we'll reevaluate it when time comes, and then eventually in May, I believe the idea was proposed to the bubble. So for a while, your job had a sense of insecurity, and what was that fear that kind of came out of that for you?
Oh, it was major fear. I just finished shooting Rain Man in the Glove. That's a Sean Kemp, Gary Payton feature. They flew me out to Seattle and we talked with the guys, got a good sit down interview about their time with the Seattle Supersonics. And it was the end of February. And about 15 minutes up the road is where I was in Bellevue, and I believe it was in Kirkland. I'm not 100% sure, but it was up there in Seattle, Washington, where I think the first cases in the United States started to break out that COVID was here, in the United States. And I was like, whoa, I just came from there. When I got back to Atlanta, I was looking back like, I just came from there. And I stopped saying it because people started looking at me in the office a little weird, like, hey, you just came from there. Maybe you shouldn't be here. But no one knew what it was. Everyone was just kind of nervous. And then all of a sudden they shut everything down. So we started editing that piece at home, remote with my editor. Same way we're sitting here talking, I would talk to her and we would have her screen up, share screen, and I would watch her timeline. We would go back and forth editing. And it just felt weird to be doing edits from home. And I was working in my garage and I'd never left the house for real. Like we would have groceries and stuff delivered for a while. And it was just very uncertain. And then I realized I work in live sports and there was no more live sports. So I was like, the NBA is not coming back. We're digging through the archives looking for old footage we can kind of put together, just piece something together to have some kind of content because nothing is happening, nothing is live. And I had a feeling I was going to get furloughed or lose my job. Some people did in my department. A lot of people in different companies lost their jobs as well because it's live sports and there was no live sports happening. So when the NBA decided to come back, I was very excited. I was getting really depressed because I hadn't shot anything in a while. My camera was stuck up at the job. I left on a Friday and that was it. I should have took it with me, but I didn't. So yeah, I was going a little crazy. I hadn't shot anything and just losing my mind. And they said, hey, the bubble might come for the NBA. And I told them I was interested, but they didn't really take me seriously because I had a wife and kids. They were like, look, man, you got a family. There's no way you can go out there. I was like, yeah, I think I'll be fine. Just send me out there. Let me, scratch this itch I got to get some shoots done. And they said, look, we need to find someone who can shoot and who can produce and who can edit if need be, who can do all the things that a whole crew can do because we can't send a lot of people. The NBA is really tight on numbers. So that's where I was able to, get in because I was one of the few people at the job that actually can do all those things and, be away from home for that amount of time. So it's just the perfect situation, kind of like the perfect storm ended up working out for me, even despite this, horrific pandemic.
Yeah, and that's where the versatility pays off. And that's one thing my teacher tells me all the time is you got to have versatility in that field. So,
Sure.
I mean, in your case, it paid off greatly for you because you got a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah.
But I guess my question for you is if the bubble were to happen again, like let's say this season just went down the hole and they're just like, all right, we got to have a bubble again. Would you go back to the bubble?
Oh, in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. I feel like that's like what I was made to do. Like as far as my skill set and just what I want to do with in my career. It was a perfect storm, man. It was great to just be in that world, to just be able just to shoot at a moment's notice, to have a positive attitude around the clock, to refocus and know that I'm part of history when times get hard. Because there were some rough days where you're just, not feeling it, or there was no real off days. Like even your off days, you're still fielding emails or organizing something or coordinating a shoot or coordinating something. So it's always, you're constantly working. And just to be in that whirlwind, it's a rush, man. It is stressful, but it's a rush that I can't duplicate anywhere else. When you find your calling, when you just fall in love with something, it's not like it's work. I never felt like I was working. They had to force me to take days off. I would get called like, hey man, go take a day off. So I'll go down to the river and take a picture of me fishing and hold up a fish like, yeah, I caught a fish, and just so they could leave me alone. Because legally you can't work around the clock like that. It's just, you can't do that. But I did. I mean, it's not work. It's not work. So once you find something like that and I look back, it's a no-brainer. Like I'm in the NBA bubble, I'm around players all day, telling their stories, making sure content is up on the site, making sure content's up on the, the TV. it's no greater job. So yeah, I would do it. I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and I wish I was old enough or in a position where I could go to the bubble, because that would be a dream come true for me to be there working nonstop and making content around the NBA. That's my favorite sport. My favorite league is the NBA. So it'd be amazing for me to be in somewhere like that. So I can only imagine from your point of view actually getting to live that out. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
amazing.
And when it got hard, I would think about guys like you because I knew I was like, man, what am I complaining about? Like, there's so many people that would trade place with me in a heartbeat just to be in this world that I'm in, just to be around all these different people that you take for granted seeing them on the TV all the time. But, when the regular NBA season was going before COVID, there was no way that we can have this concentration of NBA family in one place. Like, there was one time there was 3 games going on at the same time. We're like on our campus, so it's 3 arenas. Um, there's one main one, and there's 2 that you kind of got to walk up to, but they're all within like 3 minutes of each other walking. Um, and when I was looking at the schedules, like, hold on, there's an East Coast game going on, then a West Coast on the West Coast. Like, in reality, there was no way you can fly from Miami for this game and then fly all the way to LA for this game and then go up north to Portland for that. Like, it just wouldn't happen. But it's happening here because of the way everything was set up and just the dynamic of it. Like, the NBA really needs to be commended a lot for how they pulled that off. Just logistically thinking of all these things, and what them and Disney were able to pull off was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I mean, big props to the NBA for all of that. I mean, and now it's rough on them as well because the financial problems. So that's what's going to be hard about another bubble coming in, is if a bubble happens again, it's going to create even more financial issues. So, but there's a whole nother thing with that. But I'm going to go ahead and close off the interview here. I appreciate you for coming on and talking about the bubble, your career, and it's just amazing to me where you are and how lucky I am to be able to talk to you about it.
No, for sure, Nathan. I know I'll be seeing you again. Hopefully we'll work together soon, man. Take care. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. If you want to check out the Shot Clock Podcast, check it out on Instagram at the Shot Clock Pod. Check out my Instagram at Nathan Shaw, and you can see more clips on there. As always, I'm Nathan Shaw, and this has been the Shot Clock Podcast.